All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Today is Friday, December 9th, 2022. We are just about at the end of 2022. Hold on a second. Get comfortable here. Yeah, so we are about to complete yet another trip around the sun. And yeah, so here we are. So I am back with another stream. We're going to talk some more about the negative replacement rate and the declining population in the United States and the Western countries. Um, I had an interview over on my original channel with author and speaker and YouTube content creator Ron Wills, and we talked about the changing world and self-publishing books. And there was something that we talked about in that little snippet or that little segment about the changing world that inspired me to do last night's stream on my original channel and this stream here today. So let me make sure, if you're just coming in, please hit that like button. Let me make sure I can see myself. Clearly, you guys can see me because you're here. If you're new, please hit that subscribe button. The strangest thing happens over on this channel. The subscribership will go up and then it'll bleed back down for some reason. I don't know. I don't know why that is. YouTube is funny. Is that the algorithm? Is that people getting frustrated? I don't know. I don't know why that happens. But if you're new, please subscribe. Let me make sure. Yep, there's me. There is the picture of a vasectomy. Okay. I'm going to make an announcement over on my original channel. Before I do that, I was thinking, I don't know if anyone watching this is familiar with Glendon Cameron. He's a money guy. He's a black money guy. He has some very, very insightful perspectives himself. And one of the things Glendon Cameron said recently was that you need to be careful of making sure the exact same audience is coming to all of your channels. So he has multiple channels. Ron Wills has multiple channels. I have multiple channels. So I was thinking, okay, do I want the exact same crowd at all the channels, or do I want to bring in new people? I think there are people here who aren't over on my original channel, but just something I thought about. Okay, let me share this, and then I promise I will start because this is technically my lunch break. If you're here and you're watching, please shout yourself out in the chat. Let me know who you are, and please let me know if you have comments on this. This is a topic that, yeah, it's pretty much gonna affect everybody. It's affecting everybody. So this has far-reaching impact and implications. All right. Hopefully my voice holds up. I was at the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis last weekend. Michigan won, go blue. We're in the playoff, but there was a draft in the part of Lucas Oil Stadium that was coming right down on me the entire game. And I think my throat, I developed a sore throat because of that. Okay, I'm gonna play the intro and then we'll jump in on the other side. So I'll see you guys on the other side. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I see Doug is there in the chat. Doug, thank you for being here and for your continued support. I understand that I, s- I still have your recommendation in mind about the lovely lady I should um, collaborate with. So just there's just been a lot going on, and as a YouTube content creator, you have a life too, and there are just things going on, and things fall in where they do. I've got my triple AS uh, water jug here. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna attempt to keep my palate hydrated. Triple AS stands for the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Okay, just for those folks who don't know. Okay, so today's topic is a bit of a continuation of the last stream, which talked about declining birth rates. Uh, Doug says that was already understood. Are you talking about what triple AS is? I don't think a lot of folks know what triple AS is. Or is it having a busy life? T Riddler, what's going on? T Riddler, I see you liked the thumbnail from the New York Times article. Okay, so I'm gonna take a swig here. And I'm gonna jump in. All right, so this topic, the overarching topic, is not new. Everyone, I don't have a super chat over here. If you want to make a donation at some point during the stream or after the stream, my Cash App and PayPal are below in the description box. Okay, so the overarching theme, the overarching discussion, this is not new. People have been talking about this for a while. It hasn't been openly discussed until recently. I'm thinking about Senator Chuck Schumer's um, speech a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago, with Alexander Padilla in the background. I don't know if you all know who Alexander Padilla is, but Senator Schumer was flanked by a whole stage of Hispanics and Latinos, and he basically came out and said, "We need immigrants, and one of the reasons we need immigrants is because the population in this country is having a hard time reproducing itself." Okay, so I was happy that he came out and said that because many of them have not said that. Our political class. Now he didn't say what the homegrown population should do to help turn that around, but he did get on his soapbox to make an argument for increasing the numbers of immigrants. So a negative replacement rate, or should I say the negative replacement rate, and a declining population. This is not a new concept. And whether you're from the Black manosphere, I know for some people that's a bad word. For those unfamiliar with it, there's more talk in that sector than just um, relationships and what's wrong with the Black community. There's actually a lot of science and STEM talked about in that sector. There's also a lot of some content creators talk about money in that sector as well. But whether you hang out in that sector or whether you listen to Dr. Jordan Peterson or Dr. Warren Farrell or Nicholas Eberstadt or Anthony Davies and James Harrigan, the content creators from the Words and Numbers podcast, the authors of Cooperation and Coercion. I've interviewed them over on my original channel. Whether or not you listen to Aaron Clary or Ron Wills, this is happening. There's a decreasing, there's a high likelihood for population shrinkage. I found a graph, a link in a graph that's below in the description box, and I'm going to get this discussion going with this link. Queuing it up right now. This is from Macro Trends. Okay. I like this view better. I've seen lead attorney do this. I like this view where you're kind of in the corner and you're looking up at the link in the screen in the background. It's kind of like being at the drive-in. Anyway, so if you look at this, these are UN statistics. This is UN data. So I'm assuming, and you're probably assuming yourself, this is from the United Nations. So the United Nations, they don't just mediate wars and famines, but they also take a look at global trends in terms of population and climate. So looking at this, I'm assuming they're also keeping their finger on the pulse of what's happening with the world population. So in the United States, if we look at the top graph, this blue line represents births per 1,000 people. And this is spanning from 1950 to our current date. And then it's projecting out to 2,102. So if you look at here at 1951, okay, that's the height or the apex of the baby boom generation. So after World War II, there was an explosion of births, which gave rise to my parents. And if you're a Gen Xer, those would have been your parents as well. If you're a millennial, those would have been your grandparents. So there was an explosion of people in the United States. Interestingly, if you look at this blue line, as the years go on, it starts trending downwards. So this is births per 100 people. So it's trending downwards. Okay, there was a slight bump. It looks like in 1989, and then it trends downward. And then it continued. Here's 2007. It continued to trend downward. And so here we are in 2022. So it's decreased by about half. Okay. And so moving forward of this dotted line, it's predicted to continue to trend downwards. Not as steeply, but it's predicted to continue to trend downwards. This lower graph, it shows annual percent change. So this is births per 1,000 people. This is annual percent change. So you could see as that top line is trending downwards, this is showing you, I think, the bulk changes. So you see this steep drop here in 1968, and then it started to build back up. You had this green portion here from 1978 to 1989, and then the annual percent changes went negative again, and they trended upwards around 1999. They went negative again, and then there was a brief. It looks like we're in a brief increase in annual change right now, but again, they're predicting this to kind of flatline going into the future. And of course, nobody really knows what's going to happen in the future. Doug says, yeah, busy life. Yep. And Mr. Meach came through. Thank you for being here, Mr. Meach. So right now, okay, what should I do? How should I do this? I have a couple of videos queued up. I'm going to play these videos because I think it sets up the ending. And I'm going to show some scientific slides, just some diagrams after I play these excerpts. And then I have an article that I'm going to read. Then I'm going to wrap this up because it's 12:28 right now. So this first excerpt, this comes from my interview with Dr. Anthony Davies and James R. Harrigan from the Words and Numbers podcast. We had a discussion over on my original channel regarding immigrants, illegal immigration, and the value they add and why they're being brought here. So this is just a short snippet discussing whether there's a connection between bringing all of these immigrants in and the declining birth rates from the homegrown population. This one is short. The workings of our government and our history better than some of the citizens do here. So we know you guys already talked about Social Security and how they're replenishing that well, and we've heard for so many years that it's not going to be there for the Gen Xers and those coming after us. And I'm sure you gentlemen have also heard that the Western countries, ours included, the populations are not replacing. We're below replacement. They're not talking about this. The political class is. Does this have something to do with all of that?
Yeah, it's a Ponzi scheme. And when you no longer have enough people at the bottom of the Ponzi scheme, the Ponzi scheme falls apart.
Yeah, one of the things that contributes to an ever-growing economy is an ever-growing population. Because the more people you have, the more entrepreneurs you have, the more people you have to just simply work. And so we end up producing more stuff. And if we get to a point where our population turns around, starts declining, other things equal, I don't see from that point forward an ever-expanding economy. I see an ever-shrinking economy.
Yep. And I'm a little worried about that. I think that, that's not an unreasonable thing to be worried about.
Okay. They have the Words and Numbers podcast. They actually just released a video, I think it might have been last week, on shrinking U.S. population. Okay. So last month, I had Aaron Clary on. But before I get to Aaron Clary and his snippet, again, so if you don't have people, you don't have an economy, you don't have tax dollars, you don't have jobs being worked. And I think eventually you have a shrinking economy. And maybe you start moving towards a dystopia with abandoned cities like we saw in Will Smith's I Am Legend. So this goes far beyond the baby boomers and the families looking around and saying, oh boy, there are no young children here at Thanksgiving or Christmas. This has a much broader impact on the country and on our nation. Okay, so the question is, why is this happening? Those of you who are familiar with Aaron Clary, he's an author and a YouTuber as well. One of his big messages is minimalism, but recently he's discussed and cited data supporting the idea that in today's world, in today's United States, women just aren't as interested in men as men are interested in women. So if you don't have people getting together and intermingling, you're not going to have reproduction and procreation. So this is a snippet from my discussion with Aaron Clary from a month ago. We talked about a lot of things in that discussion, but this is from over on my original channel, and that's where this snippet is from. So here, this one is. This is one theory about what's happening.
And you kind of already see this. Women are only fractionally interested in sex as men. Many funny jokes from many years ago about, jokes about husband, wife, or something like that. So we know women only have a fraction of the sex drive that men have. But what I'm starting to see, or what I saw with a lot of my data, not to mention my own dating experiences, you always think it's bad luck. Like, what am I doing? What's wrong? What's it? And when you start to look back and compare notes and you look at macro data, macro behavior data on a nationwide level, it becomes pretty clear to me that women, at least today, are nowhere near as interested in men as women were in the past. And a lot of that comes from polling data. You ask, well, what do you want in life? Men are 6th, and I think children are 7th. Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter came out with the rise of the she economy, where half the women are just under half are forecasted not to be married. You ask women, they prefer career, education, financial stability, religion, I think, or finding themselves or something like that over marriage and children. And a really kind of the many final nails in the coffin that kind of did for me was we now have a bevy of online dating data, which is always kind of a changing target because online dating has morphed and changed so much. But when you take all this data and you put it together, it's a pretty clear picture that women do not have that much interest in men as men do women. I'm not saying women don't like guys. I'm not saying women hate men. I'm not saying that. Women are only fractionally as interested in men. And what the catalyst has been, whereas I say,
Shout out to Captain Capitalism for coming to my original channel. So one theory is, it's the women. They don't want to have babies. They don't want to, do anything. They just want to live their best lives and travel and self-actualize. But now I've mentioned Nicholas Eberstadt. There's also a growing population in our country of young men who are not working and who don't have a desire to work. That's not being openly discussed, but that's probably in this maelstrom as well. And I hosted Ron Wills on Wednesday over on my original channel, and he said something that I had heard about around the time that Roe versus Wade was overturned, but a lot of people are not paying attention to, and that's that more men nowadays are not interested in having children, and they're getting vasectomies. So this excerpt right here is from my discussion on Wednesday with Ron Wills. That's over on my original channel. You could take a look at it. Please do. All the eyeballs help. This is me and Ron discussing a changing world and what's changing and why.
They can, because there will be a change, and order always comes, but it'll look different always. And and I was thinking about what you were saying about the older generation and looking around, not as many people, not as many children. One of the things with everything going on, a lot of people are not having children right away. And then with this recent overturn of Roe v. Wade, something people are talking about, there was an uptick in men getting vasectomies. So, and then you're talking about many men, a whole lot of young men, they're not having sex at all. And then you still get the women, despite the overturn of Roe v. Wade, abortion is still legal. You still got all this stuff in many states. And then tubal ligation, many women might just tie their tubes. And a lot of them will say, hey, we can't afford kids. They might not just want kids. One thing, the older generations in the Western and Asian cultures, they used to have children not the same way. Only place they still having children, I mean, that's dropping, but they were at such a level is almost negligible, but Africa.
Okay, there was a lot there. I think an underlying theme to all this, and I'm not the first YouTube content creator or writer or author to talk about this. Yagami pointed out the mouse utopia experiments. Shout out to the nameless protagonist. He's created a lot of content on the mouse utopia experiments. And I have to read up on that. Perhaps I'll have him here to talk about that. But I think the crux of it is that when you make a species so comfortable and you take away their, when you provide all of their needs, something happens with the reproduction. The reproduction goes away, or the need to reproduce goes away, and the population, it swells to a certain number and then it shrinks back down to a certain number. Okay. So after talking with Ram, I did some, that was rolling around in my mind, and I did some quick research yesterday. I found the reproduction that graph that I just showed you guys, but I also found an interesting article on the New York Times, and I presented it yesterday on my original channel. I clipped off two little excerpts there, discussing why there has been an uptick in vasectomies from men. And I'm going to play those now. They're both 2 minutes, but I think it's very, very interesting. And again, I think the theme here, or something to think about, is how is the environment dictating behavior, and how are things like media messages and imaging, how are these things impacting human behavior? These things have been talked about um, a lot more before me by other people, so I'm not an expert on this, but I think that this New York Times article, it really, really, yeah, it really, really pulls a lot of things together. So here's the first clip. Shonda's here. Shonda, thank you for being here. It's good to see you. I saw you in Officer Faulkner's stream last night. That was a fun stream. Okay, this is the first one. This is from last night over on my original channel. That video is below in the description box. So a notable shift. A notable shift. When I started doing vasectomies about 40 years ago, if you went to a cocktail party and you brought up the subject of vasectomy, everybody might have looked at you a little weird. Dr. Doug Stein, a urologist and co-owner of several clinics in Florida, said. But the young men who called into his clinics in July expressed that it was time for them to step up and take birth control into their own hands. A notable attitude shift, Dr. Stein said, that may be indicative of a wider trend of men taking more responsibility for family planning. External circumstances can also nudge men into getting vasectomies. In 2008, the Great Recession drove a marked increase in demand. When the economy was bad and money was a major problem, people were less interested in having children, said Dr. Mark Goldstein, a professor and urologist at the Weill Cornell Urology Department. An analysis published in 2014 used economic data from 2001 to 2011, found the higher the unemployment rate, the more vasectomies were performed per month. Now many young couples are facing yet another economic recession, as well as a spiraling climate crisis and fallout from the pandemic, both of which researchers say may further accelerate the United States' declining birth rate. A 2020 poll by Morning Consult found that 40% of millennials cited the cost of raising a child as a major reason why they're not parents, and several recent surveys, including one published in 2020, have found that climate anxiety is increasingly shaping reproductive choices. It is damn near impossible to raise a child financially in this country at this point. It's also not particularly safe, Mr. Pridgeon, the comedian, said. Every day you turn on the news, it feels as though this country is burning. So why would I want to bring a child into this? So that last point, I have one more, guys. I promise this will be the last one, but that last point, someone over the summer, someone said that to me. She said, I wouldn't want to bring a child into this world today with everything that's going on. So there are two things I gleaned from that little passage. Number one, economics. You have people who are out there recklessly having children and they can't pay for them. And then you have another population of people who are a little more meticulous and want to plan it out and make sure they can afford it. And they're saying, you know what, I can't afford that based upon today's economy. I can't afford that. So economics, that's a driver. So you wonder years ago, with our industries going away and all of the economic decisions that our politicians have made, you wonder if they foresaw any of this years later after those economic policies that they put into place, and in some instances when they caused industries to shut down or move overseas. But that last point I thought was very, very intriguing because it speaks to the power of the media and the things that the media is saying. And if you're telling people every day that we're destroying the earth and the earth is eventually going to burn up, and the earth is all the ice caps are melting and all the seas are rising, if you're giving people this news every day, some people are listening to that and they're saying, you know what, there's no use in living. There's no use in creating another generation. So media messaging and the messaging we're giving people, that matters. Now, I'm not saying these things aren't happening in the environment. Um, in any science, there's conflicting data. And if you're an environmental specialist and you're watching this, I'd love to interview you. But I'm just saying that those messages about climate and the environment, those are influencing people to not want to have a family of their own. I didn't realize that. Okay. This last snippet I'm going to read of me reading from last night involves Roe versus Wade. And in the economics world, there's a principle called unintended consequences. So I think that the Supreme Court, I think they thought that by taking away the federal aspect of abortion, that they might encourage women to have more children. But it looks like an unintended consequence of that was men saying, you know what, I'm going to get a vasectomy, so I'm not going to, you might be trying to force the women to have children. I'm going to get a vasectomy, so there'll be no chance of any of that happening. So I'm going to play this clip, and then I'll move on towards the ending of this stream. Shada, it looks like you had the bug. I hope you're feeling better. I caught it last year. It ruined my Christmas and New Year. So I hope you're feeling better. And a residual question for me is it still going on? It's not in the news cycle as much as it was, but it looks like it's still going on. Okay, what's the impact of the overturning of Roe versus Wade on men's willingness to have children? Against the backdrop of an increasingly difficult environment to raise children, having fewer family planning options in a post-Roe world was the nail in the coffin for many young men who recently scheduled a vasectomy, Dr. Stein said. In April, May, and June, 38 young child-free men got vasectomies at his clinics, making up 4.6% of his clients. In the weeks after the ruling, that percentage grew to 9%. 63 younger men got the procedure. Most said they had been on the fence for a few years, but the Supreme Court decision was the final straw. So that's an unintended consequence of the reversal of Roe versus Wade. Yeah, an unintended consequence. Other urologists interviewed for this article reported similar trends before the Supreme Court decision. Dr. Johnny Hickson, a urologist in Oklahoma, said he had expected some increased interest in vasectomies if abortion was further restricted. I didn't expect it to be this stark, this fast. His clinic now sees 22 patients per day, up about 5 to 10 a day at the start of the year, and many of his new clients are child-free. A physician at the Ohio State University Medical Center said the clinic would be opening up more time slots to meet the increased demand, and clinics in Utah and Kansas are booked until October with unusually high numbers of patients. Dr. Eskar Guerin, a vasectomy surgeon in Iowa, said that in June, 6 of his patients were child-free. In July, that number surged to 25, representing over a third of all his patients. A majority of those child-free men were below the age of 30. So everyone, that's, I don't know, to me, that's a complete paradigm shift. The boomer generation, they were of the opinion that that's what you do. You have children, you procreate. That's what God told you to do. But now we're in the midst of something different. I'm gonna show this picture. T. Riddler, he liked the thumbnail from that New York Times article. I did take it and use it as a thumbnail. I'll share it with you guys really quickly. I didn't understand the significance of the cartoon until I looked at it afterwards. Let's see if I can find it. I have a lot of files in this folder. Everyone, be patient with me here. Oh, there it is. If you're just coming in, please hit that like button. You want to make a donation to the channel, that information is there in the chat. Pragmatic Prime. So everyone, T. Riddler, before I started yesterday's stream on my original channel, he said, I like that picture. This is the picture here. So if you look at this, this is from the New York Times article. You have a young man. I don't know if he's black. He might be tan, and he has a woman here. She looks Caucasian. You have a dog. You have another man hanging out there on the beach. And you have these two balloons floating away. What do those balloons look like? What do those two balloons look like? And then you have this plane flying around in the background with a banner of scissors. And then the title of the article is Snip, Snip, Hooray. Snip, Snip, Hooray. So it's a play on words. I'm going to drop the, yeah, Shonda, that's what, yeah. I'm going to drop the link to the article here. If you're not subscribed to the New York Times, you only have a certain number of clicks before they put the paywall up. So the article that I read last night and that you just saw excerpts from, that article is here. But you only have a few number of clicks before the New York Times puts their paywall up. Just FYI. So this is a science and technology channel. What is a vasectomy? This is a science and technology channel, so there should be some science here. So really quickly, before I get into this article and wrap up, humans reproduce sexually. That means you need a male and a female, right? Some species reproduce asexually. When you think about meiosis, what you're doing is you're taking the total number of chromosomes in your somatic cells and you're having those so that your gametes have half the number of chromosomes. Okay, so for humans, that's 46. So each of our gametes, for men, that's sperm. For women, that's the egg. Each of those gametes has 23. So when those come together, boom, you have an organism, well, a soon-to-be organism, with 46 chromosomes that's going to start dividing. It's going to form a zygote and a blastula, and it's going to start, it's going to elongate, form a neural tube. It's going to get a heart, muscles, all those things. So sexual reproduction, meiosis creates the gametes. Those gametes come together. Okay. We know that so men and women have each have sexual organs. Then again, today, all of these rules are blurred. What is a man? What is a woman? What is a birthing person? Traditionally, we know that men have specific sexual organs, 2 testes, and where sperm is generated. And women have their reproductive tract, which have ovaries and a uterus and these fallopian tubes and a birth canal, a vagina. When the egg gets fertilized, it travels down the fallopian tube and it eventually plants there in the cervix. Okay, that's a whole other discussion. There are whole chapters and lectures on that process. So what happens when you have a vasectomy as a man? Higami says, without laws changing from one's disadvantaging men, said men will disengage further post the new Roe versus Wade. What if done and an economy isn't better, women will also further disengage. Krypton's headed towards the sun. And for a vasectomy, now the first time I ever really heard of a vasectomy, my graduate advisor at the University of Michigan, he had 3 children, and he came in the lab one day and he told us I had a vasectomy. So in that New York Times article, it was discussed that that used to be the normal. You'd have middle-aged fathers who would get the procedure once they've had their children. It wouldn't be younger men getting the procedure to prevent the whole process altogether, but that's what we're in part seeing today. So this is a picture of a vasectomy here. It looks painful, but from what I've read, it's actually not so painful. So you have your 2 testes there. You have blood vessels bringing oxygen and nutrients down to the cells of the testes, the Sertoli cells, the interstitial cells, and then you have your vas deferens, which take sperm from those testes back to the urethra, which is where the man, or which is how the man deposits his sperm into the woman during the act. So simply put, a vasectomy is just a doctor going in and snipping those tubes so that the sperm is not delivered to the urethra, and so that there's no chance of fertilizing eggs. So that's a vasectomy. Okay. I think in some instances it's, and Shonda, you're a nurse yourself. You're in the medical sector. I think it's reversible, but it's not guaranteed that it's reversible. So a man, if he does this, he's taking a really big chance with not ever being able to reproduce. Okay, so I'm going to read this article. This is a short one, but I think it just captures this entire thing. And it's funny, going back to the mouse utopia experiments. I'm not an expert on those, but going back to the principle of things becoming so technologically advanced, medical technology 200 years ago, I don't think we had this procedure. So with increasing with more elegant medical technology, you can do things like vasectomies. Couldn't do that years ago. Okay, let me share this. Please let me know if you have any further comments there in the chat. This stream is just going to go a little bit longer. And if you want to make a donation, my Cash App and PayPal are there. This one is entitled Male Contraception in a Post-Roe World. So once again, the Supreme Court and whoever wanted Roe versus Wade turned over and abolished on the federal level, I don't think they saw this part coming. I don't think they saw this coming. I think they thought that men and women would just get back together again and start procreating, and that the birth rate would take off again. But I don't think they saw men digging in their heels and saying, you know what, I'm not reproducing either. Okay. With the end of the, and this is from October. This is October 11th, 2022. This was written on October. Well, this was published on October 11th, 2022 by Stacy Weiner. With the end of the federal protection of the right to abortion, men are stepping up to prevent pregnancy. That's led to an uptick in vasectomy visits and increased interest in a male pill. What lies ahead? For years, I've heard about a male oral contraceptive, but I really haven't seen one commercially. So maybe one will be coming now that there's an interest in male contraception. Okay. And Shonda says, thank you, Shonda. She says, the newer vasectomies have a possibility to be reversed, but older vasectomies from many years ago are non-reversible. I believe the likelihood of conceiving a child after vasectomy is under 25%. Okay. Let's see. Before the landmark Dobbs versus Jackson, Women's Health, it's Facebook, Women's Health Organization. Okay. I think this is sending me alerts from my Twitter. All right. Before the landmark Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization decision ended the constitutional right to abortion in the United States, Aaron Zaleski thought a vasectomy might one day make sense for him. I'm going to pull this up from my own eyes. My partner and I make decisions together and work on the direction of our life together. We don't plan on having children, and it's consistent with my values to share responsibility for contraception, explains the 39-year-old environmental organizer. But when the United States Supreme Court decision landed, Zaleski was done waiting. I thought I need to get my act together to do this, says Zaleski, who lives in Wisconsin, where there's a near total abortion ban. Given the current environment, vasectomy seems almost like a political act. In the wake of the June 24th decision overturning Roe versus Wade, interest in vasectomy has leapt significantly. The Cleveland Clinic Center for Male Fertility saw a 2.5-fold increase in vasectomy inquiries in July 2022 compared to July 2021, according to Center Director Sarah Vidge, MD. We're also getting more young men without children, which was rare before. The changes are very significant, and peers across the country are all seeing something similar. For decades, men have only had vasectomy or condoms as contraceptive choices, and many are interested in updated options. In one survey of 1,500 US men aged 18 to 44, 70% say they are very or somewhat interested in new male contraception. And that was before the Dobbs decision. Now, after decades of work, researchers are inching closer to a variety of male contraceptives, from a barrier method to the long, elusive male pill. All this can't come soon enough for Stephanie Page, MD, PhD, a male contraceptive researcher at the University of Washington School of Medicine in Seattle. We are facing what is becoming a crisis in unplanned pregnancies in this nation. And we know there are enormous health and economic consequences from unplanned pregnancies, says Page. We need expanded contraceptive options for men if we are going to protect the health and well-being of men, women, and their offspring. Shonda says, male contraceptives have been approved in the UK. Salchi says, I've always been more concerned about contracting an STD from a woman than I have been about impregnating one. Giagami says, for the government to enable the mass production and distribution of the male pill, there would need to be already operational wide-scale artificial womb birthing system and a wide-scale artificial womb birthing system for the whole population. Giagami, I think that's the other piece to this, because as we discussed as me and James Harrington and Dr. Anthony Davies discussed, the government is going to need bodies. It's going to need taxpayers. It's going to need workers to do the work. So if people are opting out, then those bodies are going to have to come from somewhere. And I hope YouTube doesn't remove this for me speculating on this. Okay. So the surgical solution. An estimated 5% of US men ages 18 to 45 have undergone a vasectomy. That's lower than in some Western nations like Canada and the United Kingdom, where the procedure rates range from 17% to 22%. And it's lower than the parallel procedure for US women, tubal ligation, which is close to 20%. Some experts find that concerning. Every year in this country, 25 to 30 women die from tubal ligation, says Mark Goldstein, MD, a vasectomy specialist at Weill Cornell Medicine in Manhattan. No man in North America has ever died from a vasectomy. Shonda, do you know anything about that? Women dying from tubal ligation? I didn't know women could die from tubal ligation, but I guess they can. Vasectomy actually is a relatively simple procedure. The physician makes one or two small incisions or punctures the scrotum to access the vas deferens, the tube that carries sperm. Then the tube is cut and the two ends sealed with a tie, clip, stitches, or cauterization, so sperm can't enter ejaculate fluid. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes, and patients can drive themselves home afterwards, explains Amin Haradi, MD, Director of Men's Health at Johns Hopkins Medicine in Baltimore. Patients then need to take certain precautions afterward, such as no sex or heavy lifting for a week. Okay, vasectomy is 99% effective in preventing pregnancy. By comparison, condoms are 98% effective when used perfectly, but 87% effective as they are typically used. Vasectomy is not without risk, but complications are rare. About 1% to 2% of patients experience long-term pain that impacts their quality of life, Haradi said, though treatments can help. Often the greatest downside of vasectomy is post-procedure regret, experts say. Up to 6% of patients later seek a reversal. In my practice, the people who have the most regret are those who get a vasectomy in the midst of an active pregnancy, and then the baby doesn't carry to term. In the vacuum of that loss, patients really feel hurt. Vasectomy reversal is not simple. For one, it takes 4 to 6 hours. In addition, it's not foolproof, with the success rate ranging from 73% to 91%, depending on how it's performed. Physicians therefore warn patients to see the procedure as permanent. And even for patients confident in their choice, experts say banking sperm sometimes makes sense. That's why Jackson Pevin, 27, has chosen, even though he's quite sure if he doesn't want biological children. If I ever do want kids, I plan to adopt because there are kids out there who deserve families, says the Seattle software engineer. Previn called for a vasectomy consultation soon after Dobbs. Although he doesn't currently have a partner, hearing concerns from women friends sparked him to act. Vasectomy is a concrete thing I can do to help avoid putting a woman in a situation that would be so challenging, he says. But this is also for myself, since I don't want to deal with an unwanted pregnancy. It's a win-win. So many men are seeing this as a way to also protect women in the aftermath of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. Salchi says, let's see. Kiyogami says a Brave New World / Man of Steel's Krypton type systems. It would be the hive ecosystem, as often talked about by the nameless protagonist. Salchi says there is a 6-day window to impregnate a woman. It would be wise for a man to learn his woman's cycle. Kigami says distribution. Doug says automation and artificial intelligence will replace workers in the very near future. Shonda says, I've never heard of a woman dying from tubal ligation. I'll have to research the American College of Gynecology site about this. Only thing I can think of is death from post-delivery hemorrhaging. T. Riddler asks, is tubal ligation reversible, or is that just a myth? That was that's to you, Shonda. Okay. This is almost finished, everyone. Okay, moving towards a male pill. When contraceptive pills were introduced in 1960, they transformed the lives of women and their partners. But a similar pill for men has long remained elusive. For one, major drug companies are loath to invest in trials given prior failures and uncertain demand, observers say. The basics of human biology also complicate matters. While women produce 1 to 2 eggs a month, ejaculate has over 100 million sperm in it, says Page. There are safety concerns. For example, in 2011, um, one study of male birth control was halted due to hormone-related side effects, including depression, and mood changes. Recent efforts to develop a male contraceptive have been successful in reducing side effects while ensuring efficacy. Farthest along is a male contraceptive gel that is applied to the shoulders. It's a hormonal cocktail that stymies testosterone production in the testes, which is central to sperm development, and adds just enough back to the bloodstream to prevent such features as men's low-pitched voices. The gel currently being tested with 400 couples suppressed sperm production in 90 to 95% of men who used it consistently as a previous smaller trial, says study co-lead Page. The degree of effectiveness is comparable to birth control pills for women. It's easy, just rub the gel on every day, says trial participant Alex Springer, 28. I also have regular sperm collections so they can check whether we need to add another form of birth control, but that hasn't happened. Springer has appreciated the opportunity to participate, largely because his partner's diabetes limits contraception options. I'm a little sad that my time in the trial is ending, and now we're going to have to find an alternative birth control method, he says. If all goes as planned, next up for the gel will be a phase 3 trial in about 2 years with some 2,000 couples. Meanwhile, Page, whose work is funded by a grant from the National Institutes of Health, is also aiming for a pill using a hormonal mechanism similar to that of the gel. That's tough in part because oral compounds can metabolize quickly. So far, twice daily dosing has been necessary, increasing the odds that men might miss doses. Now, researchers have formulated a once a day option and are testing varied strengths to see how well they squelch sperm production. Although preliminary results look good, longer trials are necessary to confirm efficacy and safety, says Page. Then there's also the possibility of a long-acting injection, but that research is at an even earlier stage, focused only on the technique's safety. Overall, those involved say it might be 10 years before a hormone-based male contraceptive finally arrives on pharmacy shelves, but researchers say they are committed to the long haul. I've been at this for decades, and clinical trials can be slow and complicated, and at times it's been discouraging. People tell us they feel an increased urgency to increase contraceptive options. Okay, looking at your comments now. Shonda says, if it's done right, it's not reversible. For many years, they would just tie a woman's fallopian tubes. In some instances, women still got pregnant afterwards. Now they tie and burn the tubes. Wow. Okay. Shonda says, science, okay, to answer your question about death from tubal ligation, here is the article below. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take a look at that. Let me, yeah, I'll take a look at that. Okay, wrapping this up. For those who don't want hormones, as some researchers pursue the hormone-based approach, others seek methods that avoid tampering with testosterone. Even if the side effects from contraceptive hormones are mild, people tolerate them differently. Also, patients with risk factors such as cardiovascular disease might want to avoid hormonal methods, says Gunda Gorg, PhD, a male contraception researcher at the University of Minnesota College of Pharmacy. It's about having different options. Gorg has developed a male contraceptive that works by blocking a certain form of vitamin A that plays a role in sperm development. She says it's not only 99% effective in mice and monkeys, it's also safe. We gave mice 100 times the dose and they were fine. The next step is human trials. No simple matter. It's very expensive to meet the standards necessary for FDA scrutiny, says Gorg. Her university, therefore, has licensed the compound to a small pharmaceutical company and has raised $15 million. Gorg expects the trial to launch in early 2023. Another promising approach focuses not on suppressing production of sperm, but stifling our ability to reach an egg. Working with mice, researchers at Weill Cornell Medicine in Manhattan have successfully disabled an enzyme in semen that usually gets sperm to swim. Next up is to work with rabbits. If that works well, they'll be one step closer to a pill that's taken shortly before sex, perhaps 30 to 60 minutes, and that lasts just a few hours. The goal is a contraceptive you take only when needed, explains Lonnie Levin, PhD, one of the project's co-leads. Yet another approach is to physically bar sperm from leaving a man's body. One way to do that is to inject a gel into the vas deferens in a procedure similar to a vasectomy. The difference is the gel would dissolve, restoring fertility, explains Alex Pastuzak, MD, PhD, and assistant professor of urology at the University of Utah School of Medicine in Salt Lake City, and consulting chief medical officer of Contraline, a company developing such a product. The goal, we're at the end here, everyone. The goal is a tunable gel, meaning that the product would last months or years, depending on which version the patient chooses. In September, Contraline started human trials in Australia to evaluate both the effectiveness and possible side effects of the gel. I've seen this space. I've been in this space a long time, and I get excited about very few things. I'm super excited about this, Pastuzak says. Men seem to find the approach compelling too. In fact, thousands volunteered to participate before recruitment even began, according to Pastuzak. I'm really encouraged by the number of men who are stepping up, he says. For Pastuzak, male contraception is partly a matter of fairness. We can't continuously have mostly a one-sided effort, he says. The closer we can get to equity, the better off everybody will be. There you go. Equity and fairness. This can't be a one-sided thing, according to that gentleman in the article. Okay, T. Riddler asks, Dr. Dunbar, do you think one day you can do a string exploring the funding process of these experimental trials and research projects, or a big picture overview of the clinical trial process? Oh, sure, that would be interesting. What I could tell you initially is that a lot of the funding comes from the government itself via the NIH. Pharmaceutical companies, I think they outsource some of their research, and then you have private investors like Elon Musk and Bezos and Bill. Geez, I can't think of his name. The Microsoft guy, Bill Gates. So yeah, I'll absolutely yeah. Let's talk about that, because it also can give insight as to how private individuals can pool their money to push the science projects that they want and that they need. So that's a good question. So absolutely, T. Riddler, I'll do that. Everyone, you can also I come on here and I do live streams, but you guys can contact me here as well if you have questions or if you have requests. And I would encourage you to do so, because I'm so busy that things kind of fall by the wayside sometimes and they get lost. So you can email me. You can follow me on Twitter at Big Words Are Powerful. That's my Instagram right there at NYUSF76. And that email right there, bigdiscuss76 at bigwordsarepowerful.com. I set that email address up just for my YouTubing. So you can email me there. Sometimes Ray Alexander sends emails to my email address just for my blogging, but you can email me there as well. So if you're on Twitter, please consider following me on Twitter, but definitely send me an email with questions or requests. And donations would help with those requests as well. All right, everyone, I have more to do today, so I'm going to shut this down. But I just wanted to add on to this discussion about decreasing birth rates and the negative replacement values. And shout out to Ron Wills. A lot of people are not discussing about the male side of this, and there appears to be a bit of a male, I don't know if I should say backlash, but there's a bit of a male reaction to the overturning of Roe versus Wade, even though in some states the abortions are still available, but there are some men who are reacting to that as well. These are younger men. So everyone, I'm going to stop this. All the links that I presented are below in the description box. I don't know if I put all the videos. I showed excerpts to videos from my original channel. I don't think all the links are there, so you have to go to my original channel to watch those, my interviews with Dr. Anthony Davies and James Harrigan, my discussion with Aaron Clary, my discussion from Wednesday night with Ron Wills. Those are all over on my original channel, Big Discussions 76. And you could just look it up. The name is literally just Big Discussions 76. Fauci says this is a natural occurrence in aging first worlds. Salty, what is that? Is that a lack of interest in reproducing, or what? Because as Ron pointed out on Wednesday night, younger people are going to be needed to do certain things. So if your entire population becomes aged and elderly, well, the country could get overrun by our enemies, and also that population might just completely die off itself, and there are things that younger people are going to be needed to do. So it's a very, very interesting time that we're living in. It's a very, very interesting set of circumstances that we're living through right now. I don't think anyone 50 years ago in the 40s and the 50s, I don't know that anyone would have foreseen what we're seeing today. But that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. Um, why would you put things into place that would potentially cause the species to not keep going? But then again, back in the 60s and the 70s, there was the fear of human overpopulation of the world, and having too many humans on the world or in the world. And there's the fear now that too many humans using too much energy is causing too many greenhouse gases to go up into the air, and too many humans are causing the polar ice caps to melt, and it's too many humans that are causing the problems that that people are worried about. So maybe parts of this were pre-orchestrated. I don't know. I don't know. But that's part of if you guys look up on the wall there, I'm a Michigan alum. I'm going to end with this. I'm a Michigan alum, but I'm also an alumnus of Johnson C. Smith University, which is a small HBCU in Charlotte. And a shout out, well, I want to salute the late Dr. Joseph Fail Jr. Dr. Joseph Fail was one of my professors, and he became a friend uh, at the school. He was an environmentalist, a bit of a tree hugger, and some thought he was a bit eccentric. He encouraged the students to learn how to write, and as a scientist, that's a critical skill, learning how to write and express yourself on paper. But he gave me my first real exposure to ecology. So how do different organisms and species fit together in food chains, and how do they coexist? And what happens when you take certain species out of those food webs and chains? And he was the first one to um, start to ask, that in my circle, what humans are doing to the environment. And with those first lessons on ecology, those were my first lessons on the fear of, or the danger of overpopulation. Overpopulation. But those people who are afraid of overpopulation, I don't know that they ever thought of the dangers of the population shrinking below a critical mass. Doug says, T. Riddler says, well, Salty says, correct, look at Japan. Okay. T. Riddler says, strange times indeed. And Doug says, my prediction, the population will decrease globally due to the fourth industrial wave / revolution. No need for too many humans. And he says over the next 2 decades. So it'll also be interesting to see if and when the artificial womb technology comes online, because once that comes online, well, I guess we'll be looking at some sort of a matrix type thing where babies are being born in pods, but with artificial womb technology. And then I'm going to wrap this up. You're going to eliminate the need for men and women to get together and to agree on this stuff. That's going to completely wipe that away. We will be able to completely live independent of one another, and there won't be that pressure, I guess, for the two genders to agree and to come together. That's the way I'm seeing it now. But the government will get the bodies it needs, it will get the tax dollars it needs, and it will get the workers that it needs. So all this stuff we're arguing and quarreling about in terms of gender on Twitter, here on YouTube, once that comes online, that's going to be a game changer, I believe. That's what I think. And then concern about bloodlines. I mean, I don't know how it will work. So I won't speculate on that. But let me finish this up because I have some more things to do here. So everyone, thank you for watching. If you please like, share, and subscribe. If you're new, please definitely subscribe. I could use more subs over here. T Riddler says it will be a total environmental shift. Yeah, because I think at that point, you'll also be able to manipulate the genes of the babies born in those devices and apparatuses. So it'll be a completely different paradigm. So please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to donate something to the channel, this information is below in the description box. I don't have a super chat over here or a super thanks. So there's my Cash App and PayPal if you want to donate something. Please consider joining my newsletter, the Big Words LLC Newsletter. There is a 2-paragraph greeting. There. And then there's a subscription, excuse me, sore throat. There's a subscription button at the bottom. You just click that. It takes you to that box. You just enter in your email address. And I promise I will not give your information away to a third party. And my goal is to send one out this month. Things have been a little crazy on my end, so I haven't had the chance to do everything that I've wanted to do. So, but that's one of my goals for this month. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekend. Thank you for watching. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. And always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.